Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the key differences between Kings of War's 3rd and upcoming 4th edition. As one of Mantic's Pathfinders, I've had early access to the new rules, so rather than keeping it to myself, I want to share what I've learned so you can be ready for the changes ahead. Let's break it down. Mantic has confirmed that the new rulebooks are already on their way, and players should be receiving them next week. The official companion update is set for 17th December, so everything will be fully aligned by then. But for those who can't wait, I'll be walking you through these rules right now so you can get a head start on what's coming. At the fundamental level, the rules remain largely the same, but there are a couple of key changes worth noting. First, leader points are gone. Instead, line of sight is now determined by a unit's front arc. Note that there will also be other situations where the midpoint facings will be used. Second, the old 1-inch rule from an enemy unit has been removed. You can move into base contact with an enemy unit without being considered engaged. Combat only begins when you declare a charge. Here are the movement orders you can make during the movement phase. They are also largely the same, except that now all of the units can make a free 90 degrees pivot. For the advanced move order, you can make 2 pivots instead. I will go further in depth for charge, withdraw, and reform move orders. Charge target requirements remain unchanged, but there's one important addition. You can no longer charge a unit if that facing already has 2 enemy units engaged. Movement has also been streamlined. Once you declare a legal charge, you're no longer restricted to the nearest path. The actual distance moved is ignored, meaning you can effectively bypass terrain and avoid being hindered. This is especially powerful for nimble units, since that extra pivot during a charge makes their threat angles far more flexible. For multiple charges, a maximum of 2 units can engage an enemy on any given facing. When this happens, the charges align equally across that facing to maintain balance. Once a unit is engaged in combat, its options are limited to one of these 3 orders: halt, reform, or withdraw. These restrictions keep combat clean and prevent overcrowding, while still allowing tactical flexibility in how you reposition or disengage. The reform order allows a unit already engaged with a single enemy to adjust its position. If the unit isn't aligned equally with the enemy's facing, it may reform to bring its frontage into proper alignment. Additionally, if a unit is engaged in the flank or in the rear, that unit may change its facing towards the enemy. Note that you cannot perform a reform if your unit is engaged with more than one facing. Now, here's an interesting cleanup from the old countercharge mechanics: the wraparound sub-rule. If a unit is engaged but its front-facing midpoint isn't in base contact, it may slide into contact with the exposed facing instead. The unit should be aligned as centrally as possible, ensuring its midpoint touches the enemy's frontage. If terrain or other units block this adjustment, the wraparound fails and the unit reverts to its original position. For the withdraw order, you can only do so if your unit is engaged in one facing only. First, take a nerve test. If the test is failed, your unit immediately routes. Otherwise, position that unit directly towards the enemy unit and then move 2d6 backwards. Several scenarios may happen when moving backwards. If you withdraw into an enemy unit, your unit immediately routes. If you withdraw into a blocking terrain, your unit stops before it and becomes wavered. If you withdraw into a friendly unit, you can continue past that friendly unit even if the distance is not enough. If you cannot clear past your friendly unit due to a blocking terrain, your unit stops in front of that friendly unit and becomes wavered. For terrains, it's classified mainly into 3 types: blocking terrain, difficult terrain, and obstacles. These are the given heights for the respective terrains in the book. It's also clarified that in order to be on the hill, the unit's center point must be on the footprint of the hill to be considered standing on it. For the range phase, choosing targets and making range attacks are generally the same. The shooting all-to-hit modifiers are +1 to hit if the unit performed a halt order and did not move, and -1 to hit if the enemy unit is in cover. Going further on cover, There is no more separation for obscure cover and concealed cover, and instead consolidated as just cover. To determine if the enemy unit is in cover, first draw a line from your unit, front-facing midpoint towards the enemy facing. If the line cannot draw to at least half without it being blocked, it is in cover. Another way for the target unit to be in cover is if the unit center point is within difficult terrain. Note that the 3 height levels ignoring cover is carried over to 4th edition. For the combat phase, rolling to hit and damaging also largely remained the same, though there are some changes to the nerve test. Nerve test is done at the end of movement and shooting phase, if any damage is inflicted. For combat, the test is made after each unit's attack. If you fail a nerve test from ranged attacks, the unit becomes wavered. If it fails from a combat attack, the unit routs. At any given time when a unit takes more wounds than its nerve, the unit becomes devastated. Devastated units treats all waiver results as rout. During the test, if you roll double ones, you will pass regardless of any modifiers. For double sixes and still under the nerve value, your unit becomes wavered if it is from a shooting attack. If it is from a combat attack or withdraw move, your unit takes d6 damage. We now move on to special rules. These are the rules that have no changes from the 3rd edition. There are some rules that are removed from the game, which I will not be mentioning, to avoid confusion. Here are the rules that have semi-changes. Pause the video if you need more time reading. More semi-changes rules. There are 3 rules that have a significant change. Headstrong now only works on a 4+. Nimble gives an extra pivot only during a charge. And Phalanx now simply reads as Cavalry. Larger cavalry and fly units, charging the units front-facing, becomes hindered. There are 2 new special rules introduced to 4th edition. The first is Feint. This allows your unit to withdraw without the need to take a nerve test. If the unit is not wavered at the end of the withdraw move, it may then change its facing. The second rule is Retaliate. If there are 2 or more units engaged in combat, it gains a +1 to crushing strength against one of the enemy unit. The rule also disallows you to perform a withdraw. Magic also largely remains the same, hitting on a 4+. However, for magic missiles, 2 hit modifiers would apply as if it was shooting normally, meaning it would suffer penalties or buffs from cover, movement, and special rules. Listed in the table below are the spells that do not have any rule changes. Here is the list of spells that do have changes. And now to artifacts. Here are the artifacts that do not have changes to their rules. Artifacts are classified as either common or heroic. For the artifacts that did see changes, these adjustments appear to be balance-focused, rather than introducing anything radically new. 2 new artifacts are introduced that helps with the command orders. One allows the command to be issued 18 inches away, and the other allows you to roll an additional die. Command orders are issued by commanders, either champions or warlords, during the movement phase. Each commander may issue 1 command per turn to a unit within 12 inches, with no line of sight required. Champions roll 2 dice, while warlords roll 3 dice when issuing their orders. For rules purposes, unit classifications are streamlined. Heavy infantry counts as infantry, monstrous infantry counts as large infantry, and titans count as monsters. Lastly, we go briefly on the scenarios and game setup. The rulebook included 6 suggested terrain layouts, but it seems to be taken from the -28 map generator, so not much changes if your community frequently uses it. The interesting part is the deployment layout. There are 3 consisting of the long table edge, short table edge, and corner-to-corners deployment zone. It's worth noting that Mantic had increased the number of scenarios, and it now consists of a whopping 20 different scenarios to play. Thanks for sticking with me through the whole video. If you've got any thoughts or questions, drop them in the comments below, or join the discussion in the Kings of War Fanatics Facebook group. I intend to make more videos like this in the future, including battle reports and army reviews. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you soon in the next video.